Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, come along aboard Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Appreciate you joining us. Dustin Schutte is here, as he always is, from Saturday Tradition. Jim Coyle will be joined, of course, by Chris Denari. Catch up on the Pacers. Matt Taylor, get us caught up on the Colts. Plenty of action going on at IU. Dustin, football program continues to pull them in. An Auburn transfer on the defensive line is going to fit quite nicely in there. They are adding – Indiana is using this transfer portal like a jewel. I mean, they are just adding little pieces. And I had the fortune to talk to Tom Allen the other day. We just did a one-on-one, and it was just not an interview with just us eating to talk. And I already know, but it just solidifies. That's how much fit is so important to what they're doing here or in Indiana. And you see why they bring in one guy from Ole Miss, one guy from Auburn, potentially a guy from USC. I just said those three schools I just said at the same time. When has Indiana football ever had three transfers from those three schools in a 10-year span?
Right. Yeah. It's impressive what Tom Allen is doing. And, I say this multiple times, but, I go back to, I don't even know which recruiting class it was, maybe 2018 or so, when he was able to flip Juwan Burgess from USC, and then he was able to flip Michael Penix from Florida State. I mean, at that point, you kind of realized, okay, this is the real deal. Tom Allen knows what he's doing. He knows how to convince guys to come play for him. And so what you're starting to see now is it's not just Tom Allen doing this, but he's done a really good job of getting high-end talent in the fact that, okay, we need some help along the defensive line. Let's get a guy who can plug and play. And that's what you're starting to see a little bit more here in college football with this transfer portal. You still need to go out and you still need to recruit those high school guys, those junior college guys that can help you build depth and will eventually be able to help your program in 2 or 3 years. Some of them, like a Tywan Mullen, can come in and help right away. But when you have guys that have experience at the schools you just mentioned in the SEC and the Pac-12 and the Big 12, those guys can fit right in. And you saw it last year with Javon Swan out of Stanford. Indiana needed some help along the defensive line. He came in and he filled a void, and he improved their defensive line play. I mean, it wasn't anything to write home about, but that's a big reason why they were 6-2 last season, and that's why they were able to give Justin Fields so much trouble in that Ohio State game, is because they were able to address those certain needs. So, again, Tom Allen isn't the only one doing it, but he's doing it a lot better than some of these other places because he's getting these guys from these big-time programs and getting them to come to Indiana. It's not like they're leaving Auburn to go to Michigan or Penn State. They're leaving these programs to go to Indiana, and that's a really, really big deal. So, you continue to see success. You mentioned the kid out of USC. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was a former 5-star running back with ties to Dell and McCullough. So you're talking about potentially landing a previous 5-star recruit. And then you've got, the increase in the 4 stars and the high 3 stars. So things are looking really promising, especially when you start to add those plug and play guys. That's what is going to make Indiana still at a top 2 or 3 team in the Big Ten this season.
Absolutely. And the running back from USC, that is not, something that's just been through the rumor mill that we've been hearing and talking about. It is not something that has been, I guess, reported that has happened. Stephen Carr is his name.
Yes.
He's a 4-star, was a former 4-star. He was number 2 at his position when he was, in a rival. So I think he's already played 3 years, right?
I think he's been at USC since 2017. So
2017. So experienced. So he's got experience already, and Indiana can use experience in that room just for the depth.
And that's a guy who too, he's not somebody who couldn't crack the roster. I mean, that guy's, I think he's got like somewhere 1,300 yards rushing. in his time. So he wasn't the featured premier back really consistently throughout his career at USC, but this is a guy who was able to carve out a role and get some carries over the span of his career. And I think he's battled some injuries at times too. So that also hinders, his ability to be the number one guy out at USC. But that's a place that, that's like Michigan or Penn State. They don't have any trouble getting talent, USC. So he's in that room with a lot of really good running backs. So the fact that he's thinking about, even the possibility of thinking about Indiana is a really big deal. And like you said, it's going to add talent, experience, and depth. And when you look at some of the hits, losing Stevie Scott, and obviously you're going to lose some running backs to attrition and to the transfer portal these days. Having a guy like that in your backfield, whether he's the number one or number two option, that's going to help your football team. And so he's one guy to keep an eye on, because there is a chance he winds up in Indiana.
And I think it's so very good. So, but yeah, looking forward to the summer. What's going to go on now? Is this maybe there can't be a lot of it, but you never know. There's actually, you have to be in the portal by July 1st. So any change would have to happen, but I'm not expecting a lot more with football. Like, these little things are just little surprises, but with football, you can do that. You've got a lot of room. And so that gives you a lot of flexibility to maneuver people, as opposed to, say, basketball, where it is very tight. You've got, 13 scholarship spots. And so it's much more difficult to maneuver in that manner. Speaking of what some other things, how about Keith Smart joining the staff down at Arkansas? His name was bounced around when Indiana was in the midst of their coaching search, and him ending up at Arkansas as an assistant. I don't know what that says. That's just his, I guess, foray into the college game, to get into the college game, just to start it, because maybe that's one of the things he heard, was that not having the college experience was a detriment. I don't know, but he's getting that. And so there's that. And it's good that he's in the SEC. He's not playing against Indiana. But I sent out a tweet yesterday. Man, just think, as long as Arkansas doesn't add U.S. Reed to that staff, it'd be okay. I remember U.S. Reed, the big giant killer back in the 80s, man. He, the half-court shot that shocked Louisville, the defending national champion in the NCAA tournament, to knock them out. So, speaking of the shots, but no bigger shot than Keith Smart hit, of course, for Indiana in 1987 in the national championship game against Syracuse. But it's interesting to see him down there. So that IU connection continues to flow. It's odd. The IU connection to Arkansas has been here of late. Played him twice in a row, I think, back-to-back seasons. Then Justin Smith goes there, and now Keith Smart going there. Just funny how life things just come in little waves.
Right. And Keith Smart, I don't know if his plan is to eventually get a job in the college ranks or not, or a head coaching job. But this is a guy
I would think
he's kind of a Mike Woodson type. The difference between he and Mike Woodson is he doesn't really have the head coaching experience. I think he's coached a total of 4 years as a head coach in the NBA. So he spent most of his time as an assistant coach. So this might be an opportunity to expand his knowledge base, and whether he wants to go back to the NBA or become a head coach at the college level, this would be a great step for him. And he's going to learn under one of the better coaches. I mean, Eric Musselman was a coach that a lot of Indiana fans wanted, to be the next head coach at IU. So he's going to get some good experience down there in the SEC, and it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. He could potentially be a head coach here in the next couple of years.
Indiana's also reached out on the basketball side to USF transfer big man Michael Durr. Durr entered the transfer portal earlier this spring, recently reopened his recruitment after originally committing to Virginia Tech. Durr averaged almost 9 points, 8 rebounds, and a block in just over 26 minutes a game last season. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. Since reopening his recruitment, he's heard from Pittsburgh, DePaul, and Penn State, among others. Originally from Atlanta, Durr has a prior relationship with IU assistant coach Yasir Roseman, so we'll see how that goes. He's a 7-footer, folks. 7 foot, 250 pounds. He started 80 5 of 87 games during his South Florida career. He played in 19 games in last season. He missed 3 due to an injury. His 8 rebounds a game led to a rebound rate of 16%, which is second in the AAC. He also ranked second in the conference in offensive rebound rate at 11.9. So you got a guy with some size that gets to the ball. That's something that Indiana has not had in their offense for quite some time. Wow, a 7-footer. Yeah, that's been a minute. Is it Uwe?
Yeah, you love to see those guys because they're still an impact player in the college game. You know, in professional basketball at the NBA level, you got to be able to step out and shoot the 3 if you're 7 feet tall anymore. But the 7-footer is still a prominent position in college basketball. And I like what Mike Woodson's doing here too with the transfer portal at trying to add experienced guys, saying basically, you know, I want to win now. I'm not trying to start from scratch here. I know he's still got to go out and get some good recruits and you know, establish his recruiting footprint and that sort of thing. But at the same time, to go out and say, you know what, I want, again, we talk about what Tom Allen did. I want a plug and play guy. I want a guy who's going to address a need, who can step in and play, you know, 10 to 15 minutes a game and help us win. So that's a really promising sign, because you're not a guy who's going to tear everything down and build back up. He's saying, I think we got the players good enough. We just need to add a few pieces with this next class. We need to add a few guys to our 2021-22 roster, and I think we can be a really good basketball team. And that's why I think the product is going to be so much more fun to watch instantaneously.
I agree. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com. That's all that information is there. You can go there. As a matter of fact, you can have premium content for the summer for free. Just go there to thehoosier.com and sign up. Indiana Rivals has all of that. It'll have all the recruiting action for the summer, traveling to all the AAU events. So if you want to keep up with it, that's where it's going to be. Thehoosier.com. Go there and get signed up. Plenty more coming up today, man. Dustin, we got plenty to talk about as more football and basketball action. Men's soccer is preparing to go for a 9th national championship, man. I feel good about this. If I didn't have stuff going on with my daughter, with Kylie, with all of her senior stuff, I would be in North Carolina. I really have a feeling about this run for them. This is not the most dominant team they've had in the last couple of years. They should have won another national championship probably 2 seasons ago when they were lost to Stanford. That was just on a miscue. But this team keeps finding a way to win. And they lost Spencer Glass. They just keep finding a way to win. I wish I could get down there to North Carolina. I would definitely be going if I wasn't going in different directions. But we'll talk about that and more from Indiana on here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Plenty more coming up. We'll be back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking for a new or a used. All right.
Dustin, do you think that Tyreek Johnson from Ohio State could go to Indiana?
Good.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
He's probably going to wind up back in Florida, or he might go. He played under Greg Schiano, and Greg Schiano's done a really good job about recruiting those transfer portal guys from the Big Ten.
Gotcha.
What you having for breakfast?
I had a not a Nutri-Grain bar, a Nature Valley bar. I crunched on some ice.
Were you on a health kick or something?
Yes.
Hey, Nature Valley bars are good.
They are good.
Those is it one of the honey ones?
No, I get both because they're BOGO, but this was one of the protein ones, so it's a chewier one. It's like
Gotcha.
Dark chocolate and almond or something.
That sounds good.
It is.
I fell asleep watching Deadwood again. I'm trying to find. It's hard to find a quote that you can even use.
Do. I'll sit back so I don't get the squeak.
And Matt Taylor will be joining shortly. He confirmed with me for 9:20.
I just watched that episode last night. That's pretty funny.
What episode? Did I miss something?
Yeah. Never mind.
So I take it it's not on the streamings. Is it on cable?
I was watching on it's on HBO or whatever. I don't know what I was watching on. I was probably watching on Amazon.
Oh,
Tim says, I go for the Fruity Pebbles bars. Come on, Tim.
Fruity Pebbles?
Man.
Tim just likes to hate on me. He's always saying something in the comments about me. He likes to mess with the producer.
I've taken a lot, well, with the exception of last week, because I ate cake. I still have some cake, but
let them eat cake.
But I've cut a lot of sugar out.
Well,
Does
good
no
for
one
you,
know that
Brett.
famous line?
I
Let
have
them
heard
eat
that
cake?
line.
No.
All right, coming back.
Let them eat
Family,
cake.
meeting for lunch, hanging with friends, or on the golf course, Sam's Restaurants has multiple locations and something for everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte as well from Saturday Tradition. Matt Taylor will be joining us. There's that clicking back. I haven't hit the comment line yet this morning. Let's see. Tim says, all right, how about this one? What do you think about Fran McCaffrey kicking his son out of the house and into the transfer portal? Well, I hadn't seen it, but
I hadn't heard that either.
I think is that like a joke? I mean, because that sounds like something that Mike Davis said as a joke when we had him on. So I was about to kick Antoine into the portal. So, and Tim, that would not be is that accurate, Tim, or is that another one of your Tims that you throw up there? That would not be the first time that something was not accurate. Here's something that is an accurate question. Have we heard anything about season ticket purchases on how they are trending for football? Yeah, I saw something not too long ago, up about 10%, which I guess that's a healthy bump for Indiana, but that doesn't sound like a healthy bump to me coming out of a pandemic, coming out of not the pandemic, but coming out of not being able to see any sports whatsoever. You've got a team coming that's a top 10 team.
Right.
Never in your history, in your lifetime, have you had an Indiana top 10 team. They're going to open the season with a top 15 matchup. They're going to play a top 10 matchup, game 3. And we haven't even talked about Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State yet.
Right.
Why are people not buying tickets? They're not that expensive. They're not expensive. I would think that they'd be buying season tickets. Not my job to push them. I'm not doing that, but I'm a little surprised.
Let me chime in on that really quick before we get to Matt Taylor. I think you're going to see a panic buy.
Well, who says Matt wants a hold for you?
He can chime in at any time. I think you're going to see like a panic, not a panic, but a rush, maybe July or August. I think people are hesitant to buy their tickets until they know for sure what the capacity is going to be. So I think the 10% right now is healthy, but I think you're going to see a huge spike in ticket sales come July or August when there's a final announcement from whether it's Indiana or the Big Ten saying, yes, we'll go 80%, 100%, whatever the case is going to be. That's when I think you're going to start to see a jump.
I think you're absolutely right because Bloomington happens to reside in Monroe County, which happens to be one of the most restricted counties in the state of Indiana, still under regulations that have basically not changed. So, yeah, I can see that because it has been much more difficult for them, during the NCAA tournament. Instead of the 2,000 that they could have had at Assembly Hall for their tournament, they had 500. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. Matthew, how are you, sir? Matt Taylor joining us from Indianapolis Colts.
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we're just sitting there jawing about ticket sales for IU football, which, always important. The Colts probably that's not something they have to worry about because that is a sustained thing. But Indiana hasn't ever had that for one. But now you've got the great team. You've had no sports, so I would think that would make people even hungrier and thirstier. You've got beer in the stadium. Don't forget about that. So you're coming back to a new world, baby. IU football is kicking ass, and you've got beer in the stadium, and you can go there.
I'm with you guys, though. I agree with what you said. I mean, there's not a huge sense of urgency to buy tickets right now because, a lot can happen between May and I guess what's the first game is September 4th, I think. So, there's a lot that can change positively or negatively between now and then. I know you probably get a refund, but to not go through that hassle of buying it,
maybe get a refund.
Yeah, you might get deferred to the next year or whatever. But
that's exactly what they did, I think.
Yeah, and
they ask you to make a donation. Yes,
I would not be inclined to make a donation. I would like to have my football tickets in hand so I can enjoy a beer and touchdowns more so than pay for somebody's textbooks. But that's just me. But no, I mean I agree with you guys. I think for the most part, if things are normal, and I put that in quotes for next season, if a majority of the stadium is full next year, I think. A lot of people are going to be buying their tickets a handful of weeks before the game they choose to go to. And I think it's going to be a really good atmosphere next year for IU football, considering the season they had, the program momentum, and just people being antsy and eager to take in a live football game after not having it for the last, 16, 17 months.
Well, not only that, and I know you heard, I think when you first joined, Indiana opens up they're a top 10 team, and they're going to open up at a top 15 on the road, Iowa. Then 2-3 games into the season, they're going to host Cincinnati, which is a top 10 team. So that's just to start the season. That's the first 3 games. Normally, we're talking about Georgia Southern and Marana Baptist College and Ball State. No. We're talking about Iowa and Cincinnati. Top 15 and a top 10 team in the 2 out of the first 3 games. And that's before you get to the Big Ten East.
Right. And that's what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying all off season long. And, I know that you are, specifically you, incredibly optimistic about this team. And I am too. Like I choose to stay very positive on the scale of things as a fan. But I look at that schedule knowing you've got to play the Big Ten East gauntlet. And, I'm not trying to compare my experience whatsoever with what Indiana football is going through because they're apples and oranges. Okay, so don't get it mixed up. But as a Division III player, I was in a program that was a doormat, and then we finally had some good success. We went like 8-2, 9-1, surprised some people. The next year, it was completely different. We were no longer the hunter. We were the hunted. They know we were coming. So Indiana is not going to surprise anybody. They're not going to creep up on anybody's schedule. Not that they did last year, but I'm just saying Indiana now is a marquee game for every single program in the Big Ten East. They got a bullseye on their back. And so with what you just said, having some really big games to start the season, out-of-conference games against, I think, Idaho, Cincinnati, who is another top 10, 11 team in the country. If I don't want to put the horse in front of the cart too much as an IU fan. I'm still in the mode of just get 6 wins, maybe 7 wins, get to a bowl, and let's win a bowl, no matter what it is. Like I know Indiana itself as a program has higher expectations than that, but I'm still in the mode of like, hey, any January football, any 13th game you can give me as an IU football fan historically is awesome. So I'm just sort of in that mode, knowing the gauntlet that is in the Big Ten East. Plus, you have some really big marquee games before you start the Big Ten schedule. I still would like to see this team get 6-7 wins, win a bowl game. To me, that's light years ahead of expectation-wise where we've been as fans with this football program.
Matt, I can tell you did your job well when you're down at Franklin because that game was always circled on the calendar when I was at Manchester. So
I see. There you go.
You put the Grizzlies back on the map there. So that was always a big game for our guys. I know that.
Right.
But going back to the NFL draft, I know we didn't get a chance to talk last week. You talked about some of the positions that the Colts needed to address. They go with Kwity Paye, defensive end, in the first round. They get another defensive end out of Vanderbilt in the first 2 picks, and then they don't get an offensive tackle until the 7th round. Were you surprised by that, or did you think that was maybe the route they were going to take leading up to the draft? I mean, I know it's always changing every hour, but were you surprised at all? I was a little surprised they didn't go offensive line a little bit earlier.
I wasn't. I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from. I think a lot of the fan base thought the same thing. But if you just followed along with the draft going in, there was good tackle depth, and we heard about that all off season long. As hey, you can get some really good tackles. There's some guys that can play, that can contribute as late as late round 2, maybe round 3, and I think that's true. I think the problem was that Chris Ballard thought after the draft, and he talked about this, there just wasn't a whole lot of prototypical left tackles. And when you spend a premium pick on a guy at that position, you ought to feel good about how he projects to your team right away. If you think about the great tackles that the Colts have had over the years, you're talking about Tartt, Glenn, Anthony Costanzo. Like, those guys were first-round picks, no doubt left tackles, plug-and-play guys that could be cornerstones on your offensive line for, a couple of contracts. And with Costanzo, he played 10 years. So after guys like Penix Sewell out of Oregon, after guys like Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker from USC, once those players were off the board, it was kind of, flavor of the month. It was your evaluation in terms of like how you saw these guys fitting into your locker room and your system and your scheme. And the Colts just didn't feel like there was a lot of plug and play, prototypical, no doubt left tackles. And that being said, with all the quarterbacks and all the offensive players in the first round, in the first, 15 picks, it pushed down a lot of great defensive players down to the Colts at 21. And so Kwity Paye fell to them. And quite frankly, at that point, Chris Ballard said he was the highest player on our board position-wise. So we had to make the pick. Plus, it's a definite need for this team as they try to get younger, more cost-efficient, and more explosive and kind of build for the future at defensive end. So they went heavy on at that position in both rounds 1 and 2. And at pick 54, they selected Dayo Adangbo out of Vanderbilt. And the same kind of thing happened in the second round as the first, where you had a run on tackles in front of the Colts. I think there were 5 tackles in the 15 picks in front of the Colts. But even with that said, again, it sounds like Adangbo was sort of their guy all along. They were crossing their fingers and saying some Hail Marys and murmuring to themselves in the draft room prior to that pick, hoping he would still be there, and he was. But the caveat on him, of course, is that he tore his Achilles in January, getting ready for the Senior Bowl. So he's going to be a guy that's not necessarily ready to go by the time of training camp in late July. We'll see, where he is from an injury standpoint, when he can get on the field and help this team. But bigger picture, you got 2 rookies, and I think it's a tall order. It's a tough ask to ask 2 rookies to get, 10, 12 sacks respectively in their first year. That just doesn't happen. I mean, look at Chase Young last year. He was by far the best pass rusher in the 2020 draft, and he only had 7.5 sacks as a rookie last season. So what I'm saying is it's all hands on deck for the Colts at pass rush. That's probably the biggest thing they needed to address this offseason. So they collectively need to get it done with, 6-7 guys like Ben Banigou, Al-Qadim Mohammed, Isaac Rochelle, Kamoko Toure. Basically, if you're on that defensive line, you got to pull your weight, especially if you look at the Colts' first 5 games of the season. As the schedule came out last night, you're playing Murderers Row. You're playing 5 teams to begin the season that all won 10 games last year, and 4 of them made the playoffs. 2 of them won their division. So that's a critical stretch to start the year, and the Colts have to get some, consistent pass rush on some of these elite quarterbacks that are playing right out of the gate.
And in addition to addressing a need, the thing that I like about the Kwity Paye pick is there aren't a lot of cities that embrace and appreciate an underdog story like Indianapolis. And so I think from that perspective, I think that he fits into that organization and into the city very well. If you know his story, if you have an NFL Network, Big Ten Network, there's a lot of different networks that have done a feature story on him. So anybody listening or watching who hasn't seen that, go out and watch that, because it's an incredible story. And like I said, I think that Indianapolis is one city that truly embraces and appreciates an underdog story. So I think he's a great fit, not just because of the position he plays and the talent he has, but because of his backstory as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a great point. I think his personality kind of fits the personality of the city. It's a blue collar, hardworking, kind of down to earth type of place to live. As you guys all know, the state of Indiana, I hate to paint with a broad brush, but that's sort of who we are as a culture around here. That's who he is as a person. He's going to bring his lunch pail. He's going to give you literally every single thing he has. He is driven for greatness. You bring up a great point about his background, his story. Again, if you don't know it, just Google Quiddy Pay. The long and really the short of it is that his mom, she's literally a hero. I mean, she grew up in Liberia during 2 civil wars inside that nation in Africa, and she immigrated and literally put her life on the line. They moved to Rhode Island. She sacrificed basically all of her time working 2-3 jobs at a time to afford the cost of living out there and to give Quiddy a chance to play football in high school and get a college scholarship and all of that. So really dive into that story if you haven't already, because it's amazing. You'll come out with a huge appreciation for the Colts first round pick, and the Colts are going to give him time to grow. They're going to give him time to develop. He's going to work with Brian Baker, their defensive line coach. He's going to get his hands on him. He's going to work with guys like Robert Mathis that are still involved with the program, the team. So he's one of the great strip sack artists of all time in the NFL. So the Colts just kind of had to make a tough decision from an organizational standpoint. They kind of had to draw a line in the sand when it comes to their pass rush. It's like, do we keep going after these 30-something veterans that have had great careers but only have maybe 1, 2, 3 good years left, or do we really make a good investment in the draft and go young, go development, go cost effective, and draft for a tremendous upside and guys that can be stars for a long time with this team? So that's the plan. That's what they've done. We'll see what happens. And of course, the biggest wild card is Adangbo getting on the field with his injury.
Man, looking forward to it. Looking forward what they can get done. It should be an exciting fall of football in the state of Indiana. And the Colts and the Hoosiers will be the 2 best programs. Well, Notre Dame they're in good shape. Purdue, I saw some predictions for the conference. I saw predictions for Big Ten odds on winning the Big Ten championship. Indiana was 6th, I think, behind Iowa. Iowa was 11-1. Indiana was 12-1. That's the lowest odds on Indiana winning a football Big Ten championship ever in the history of odds. Now, maybe back in the 60s, if they had odds, it would have been different. But actually, I think that they should flip. I think they're going to beat Iowa at Iowa. But think about that, Matt. Indiana is listed and in the conversation of teams to win the Big Ten championship this year. That's crazy talk.
Yeah,
but it's the new normal.
It is the new normal, and it's exciting, and it certainly beats the heck out of the alternative. What we as IU football fans have had to deal with. I mean, I hate to throw cold water on everything, but just that Big Ten East schedule every single year is such a meat grinder. I mean, Penn State had a down year, but you can't erase 25 years of excellence. You can't erase 25 years of program stability. Same thing with Michigan. These teams are going to be back. They're going to be back as soon as next season, and they are both going to be gunning for IU after what happened last season, especially in that dramatic Penn State overtime win. So I'm just, again, I can't, it's not beaten out of me yet. Indiana football to me still is, we just striving. Let's get 6. Remember those T-shirts back in the day? Win 6, get to 6. So that part of me is still ingrained, and hopefully one day eventually it leaves me. Hopefully my expectations are a lot higher than they are now. But I just think that Big Ten East schedule every year is such a it's so unfortunate that IU has to play that schedule. You just get rid of the divisions. I'm going to go on my soapbox here, but they serve no purpose. They serve absolutely, I mean, they're so impractical. I have no idea why they did that. But the fact is, you have to play that schedule. My dad is a season ticket holder for IU football, always gripes about their non-conference schedule for home games. And I look at him, I'm like, are you crazy? Well, you're right, not this year. But I think like in normal year, he's going to see, William and Mary and some FCS schools. And I'm like, listen, you're Indiana football. You got to get 6 wins. You play in the Big Ten East. You can't blame them for what they're trying to build as a program. They're trying to get the bowl games. They're trying to get more revenue. They're trying to get more practice time in the month of December. Like, this is part of the process. You can love it or hate it, but this is the real world in major college football in the Big Ten with a program like IU. So I'm still sort of in that wait and see mode because I just know what's coming towards IU's way once they start playing Big Ten games in late September and October.
Yeah, they've got it equally split coming up this season, 6-6 road and home. The home games this season, how about starting with the first home game, the Iowa Vandals? Is that still coached by Petrino's brother?
I have no idea.
Man, I think that's who was coaching them. But anyway, so then you've got Idaho and Cincinnati back-to-back weekends. That's not a bad start.
Right.
Their home games, you got Michigan State, Ohio State.
Maryland's going to be better next year. Rutgers is going to be drastically better next year. There's just no
and
layup.
Minnesota comes in.
Yeah, there's no gimmies on that schedule. The bucket game's always a wild card. Like, there's no – again, I hate to be like the pessimistic IU fan. I'm just like living in reality here. Like, there's no layups on that schedule in that conference every year.
Rutgers at home, Idaho at home, Western Kentucky on the road, definitely. Idaho at home, Rutgers at home, and Purdue on the road are the 4 easiest. Mm-hmm. That's the easiest.
Right.
I'm not saying they're easy, but when I say Purdue is one of the easiest, top 4 easiest games they have, that tells you how difficult the schedule is.
Right. Yeah, let's just take it week by week, game by game. Obviously, health is paramount, and you start and stop with the quarterback. He has to prove that he can stay healthy, and I'm not down on him. It's not a critical thing for me on him because I think most of his injuries are unrelated to each other. It's just some bad luck. But if Michael Penix is not healthy, it changes their offense. It changes their entire team's complexion altogether. So you start and stop there, and hope for good luck. Hope for some breaks like they got last year. I'm really eager to watch them in big time environments now that fans are going to be back in stadiums. And I don't want to take anything away from their win at Wisconsin because I was fist pumping for 3 or 4 days after that game because that was a program changing win on the road. But it was an empty Camp Randall. And again, all of these teams, all of these fan bases know IU's coming. They are the hunted now, not the hunter after what happened last year. And so they're going to get everybody's best chance, everybody's best shot. And on the road, you're going to have a bunch of crazy fan bases and some marquee venues in full throat, giving IU all they can handle.
Absolutely, Matt. What do you got coming up, brother?
Well, the schedule came out last night, so we're sifting through that, putting out some content, doing some podcasts and some radio shows regarding the schedule. And then after that, we got some OTAs coming up later on at the very end of this month. Some more OTAs in June. Minicamp is, I believe, June 13th through the 15th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's mid-June. And then after that, it's sort of the dead period in the NFL in terms of the calendar. So guys are coming in, trying to get better, sorting through the playbook. Carson Wentz getting up to speed with his new receivers, new teammates. So it's going to be a very, very important offseason for the Colts as they try to ramp up for training camp. And then, as I said, start the season with 5 massive games to begin the 2021 schedule with all those playoff teams on there.
Yeah, I was just looking it over. What jumps out? Is that what jumps out the most to you? Is the start? Because the start is critical. I mean, you can get buried and not be able to climb out of a hole.
Yeah, the overall takeaways is the brutal 5-game stretch might be the toughest in football. Again, every single game on that stretch or in that stretch features teams that won 10 games last year. 4 of them made the playoffs. You look at the another thing that stood out to me was the primetime games. You know, after having no primetime games last year outside of that mandatory Thursday night game, the Colts are going to appear 4 times, but they get hosed. They get absolutely screwed again with road and home games. 3 of their 4 primetime games are on the road, and I don't know what it is. In the last 5 years, the Colts have played 14 primetime games. 12 of them have been on the road. Since 17, it's 9 on the road, only 1 at home. I mean, the NFL, every team
Jim
has...
Irsay, man, he's got to make the call. Hey, man, what's going on with the schedule, man? You got to put us on the road. Man, we like Lucas Oil. We'll open the roof, man. It'll be so cool.
I mean, he was PO'd 2 years ago about it, and it's obviously only gotten worse. And every team has their schedule inequities, but you just have to do a better job, I think, as a league of smoothing them out over the course of time. Since 2012, the Colts have played or will have played 31 primetime regular season games. 23 of those have been on the road. That's 74%. That is by far the highest percentage in the NFL. The last time the Colts hosted what I'm calling like a marquee primetime game, Sunday night or Monday night game, you have to go all the way back to 2015. I just don't understand it. I don't understand why this franchise continues to. I mean, it's not like, I know they haven't been the New England Patriots winning Super Bowls every other year and have had a sustained greatness, but they're not the Jacksonville Jaguars either. So every single team in that span, going back to 2012, has played at least 2 Sunday night or Monday night home games. The only 2 teams are the Jaguars and the Colts, and it's inexplicable. I have no idea how the Colts have gotten this shafted for this long.
Man, that makes a difference in how you end up the season and where you go. So did not realize that's nearly 75% of the games. That's crazy. Nuts, man. Well, Matt, I appreciate you, brother. As always, look forward to doing it again next week.
All right, guys, be well.
Thank you, brother. The great Matt Taylor joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. We're back with more, brought to you by Any More Honda right after this.
Whether you're looking for a relaxing night with a family,
yeah. Grapes here.
I like that Jim Irsay impression.
Oh, dude, I got Jim Irsay down. That's one I can. Hey, man, what's with this schedule, man? 70. I'm not great at math, but what? Let's see, carry the one. Man, that's almost 75%, man. That's more than half, man.
I'm gonna have to clip I'm gonna have to make that a Spreaker thing.
That's
what was last year? He did something. It was great. I loved it. I was saying whatever it was he said. It was. He's a great. I like him. I'm not cracking on him.
It is weird that is the case. I don't understand.
That's
that at all.
Freaking crazy. That's a crazy time number, man.
That is. It's not like it's
60.
18
Anything
or
over
12.
anything over 60 to me would have to be looked at. That's because now you're getting beyond close to proportion of equity.
Right.
And now that is so far out of equity. It's inequity.
And I don't understand too. It doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't matter for television, I wouldn't think, where the game's played.
All right. How many years does Michael Penix have left? Well, that's a good question, actually. I don't know.
It's 2.
2?
Unless he goes
That's
early.
what I thought. Yeah, there's no, no. He's not going early.
If he has an incredible season this year and he doesn't get hurt, he's going. I guarantee it.
Okay, well, what team is going to take a chance on a guy who gets hurt every time he steps out of bounds?
But here's the thing, though.
Because they know he has
get drafted.
They know
if he doesn't.
But they know we all know he's talented. That's not in question. Can he stay healthy for longer than 2 seasons? This is not the NFL. This is college. They need
I
to
hope
see
he comes
him
back 2 more years.
I'm just
think
saying,
that if he has
I
a
cannot
great
have-
season without getting hurt,
I don't think so. You know,
who is going to take a chance on him, man? They've got to see him stay healthy for more than one season. They are not going to spend $30 million on a guy who has not stayed healthy for a season in a row. I don't care how good of a season he has. Front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. The great Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios here on this Thursday. Brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. Bloomington, Dustin Schutte with me as always. Question from Tim. How many years does Michael Penix have left, and does he leave early for the NFL? 2 and no, my opinion. I think that the NFL has got to see him stay healthy for longer than a season. His talent is not in question. We know he's got a rocket of an arm, but can he stay healthy? This is not the NFL. Is not this. That's a whole different deal there, man. So I don't see him leaving early for the NFL personally.
He could, I don't think, but I don't know that it's going to be in his best interest. And I'm going to compare his career to 2 guys. Maybe this is unfair because I think he's got more arm talent and I think he's got more pocket presence than these other 2 names I'm about to mention. But if you go back, Northern Illinois in the early 2010s with Jordan Lynch, and then you look at Ohio State, JT Barrett, those 2 players are a little Michael Penix-y in the fact that I think that he could get drafted in maybe the 6th or 7th round. The question is, would he be able to stay healthy enough? I mean, he's a great college quarterback, but I don't know if there's anything that like you look at Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, and you know that those guys are NFL guys. Like you just know. You watch one game and you say, yeah, that guy's going to the NFL. I don't quite have that with Michael Penix, at least not yet. He's had issues with his accuracy. Obviously, you mentioned his health. He's not as mobile as some of those guys I mentioned. So I think he'll be around for 2 years. If he does have a big season, you never know. But I don't think whether he goes after 1 year or 2 years, I think he's still going to be somewhere in that 5 to 7 round range as a guy who, yeah, we could use a little depth in our quarterback room, but we're not going to waste a high draft pick on it. So that's my 2 cents on that situation.
We were talking about season tickets. Jennifer says you were able to get a refund on tickets last year. They gave an incentive of double varsity points if you donated your tickets. And then Keith says they asked them to donate their payment for the mid-season basketball tickets last year. Let's see. David says Budweiser and IU football, they were the same colors. Coincidence? He thinks not. Must be his beverage of choice, I guess, and his football team of choice. So there you go. Alan says, Jim, I checked last night and Monroe County is in the Copperhead region of the map. So look out. Yes, it is. And that's because of, well, 2 things. Number 1, the Lake Monroe, but this 17-year Brood X cicadas that's about to invade us. They're delicacies for copperheads at an exact stage of their life. So, yeah. And, yeah, I live out by the lake, so trust me, I've been thinking about that nonstop. I'm like, yep, I'm going to be watching exactly where I am, where I'm stepping, where I'm going. I am not a fan of snakes in any stretch of imagination.
You got to carry your rake with you everywhere you go so you can trap it.
Rake, trap. What's trapping do?
Well, you don't want to trap. I mean, that way it doesn't lunge at you. Trap it. You got to trap its head there.
There won't be trapping. There's no trapping if I see a snake. I got news for you. Sorry, animal activist lovers, but if I see especially one that is thought to be one of the poisonous venture, ain't no trapping happening. It's fight or flight, baby. Fight or flight.
Yeah, I don't blame you there.
Let's see. What else we got going on this weekend? A busy weekend for me, of course. You got more graduation stuff. So many people are busy with graduation. The college graduation has already happened. That is over. So you got that stuff out of the way. The students will be leaving if they haven't already. Campuses are going to be quiet for a while. Basketball players are not coming until June. That reminds me tonight, don't forget, almost did forget. Hey, we've got Miller Kopp and Tamar Bates tonight at 7 o'clock, live from Yogi. So, and Charlie Miller. So Charlie, I'm going to let Charlie do a lot of that. He does a lot of development, but looking forward to that tonight. Almost forgot about that. You got to remind me about that, John. So yeah, don't forget about that tonight, 7 o'clock. Tamar Bates and Miller Kopp with Charlie Miller and myself. So looking forward to talking to those guys. Haven't talked to them yet. Spoke with Xavier Johnson earlier this week. So looking forward to talking to those guys tonight. It's been a busy month of May, man. And boy, am I ready for it to slow down. I'm telling you, I never thought that I would say that, especially coming out of what we came out of. But you knew, and I still think that there's more of it. It's going to be like a tsunami we've been pulled back so much because of the pandemic that when it gets let loose, they got to be careful just not to let it all come rushing through and like a tsunami will, man. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's been like when you put that tie the hose, right, and then all the pressure builds up, and it might take a while to get there, but eventually, when it comes out, it's going to be spraying all over the place, and that's kind of what happened, with the sports. And I think that now that we're getting back to closer and closer to normalcy, we're going to start to see, the schedule isn't going to be quite as condensed, or you're not going to see all these sports happening at once. And it was great. It still is great. I'm not going to lie. It's wonderful to have this much going on after what we had to go through last year. But also, it is
breaking news.
It is.
We got some breaking news. Jerome Hunter is not going to be returning to the Indiana men's basketball team. So that is something that's not entirely unexpected, but with the recruiting, and we've seen what's going on, that they're still reaching out to other guys. That's not a shock at all, but just coming out right now that Indiana University men's basketball coach Mike Woodson has announced that redshirt sophomore wing Jerome Hunter will not return next season. We appreciate everything that Jerome has done as a member of the program and wish him nothing but the best in the future from Mike Woodson. So you're hearing it here first. Right now live, Jerome Hunter not coming back to Indiana men's basketball next year. So there's that. That's going to open up a spot without question.
And this is the time of year when you have a bunch of, the new recruits and the transfer portal guys. And, some of those returning players are going to have conversations with the coaching staff and say, hey, you might not get the minutes that you think you're going to get, or, so I think, typically at the end of the season, you see guys that want to jump in the transfer portal because of the coaching change, or they don't like the offense, whatever the case might be. It's not what they thought it was going to be. So you see more of a knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion. And this is the time of year where you start to have those conversations when players are going into coaches' offices or talking to them on the phone or whatever the case might be. And there's more of a thoughtful process going into it. Now, obviously, I don't know what the case is, but typically when a coach releases some sort of statement on that means that there was probably a conversation had, and both sides agreed, you know what, this is going to be mutually beneficial. You go on somewhere else, you'll get more minutes. You're a talented player, and we're going to be able to run our offense, our defense, or, we'll be able to open up a spot for somebody else, whatever the case might be. So you say it's not surprising. It was slightly surprising for me, but obviously you're on the basketball beat much closer than I am. So I'll take your word.
Well, when you see that they are still actively recruiting from
fair.
Available players, available now,
right.
Yeah, you have actually there, and I think they're already won over, to be honest with you. But Jerome was also a guy that's been there for 3 years, and I'll be honest with you, he's not produced anything. But part of that's probably not his fault because no one produced a lot under Archie Miller. No one developed under Archie Miller. But they have to determine what is there. Again, it's just like it's a new administration. I'm not surprised. It's just different styles. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised at all. That's why you're going to see a whole different type of Indiana basketball next year. This is why. It's hard decisions. Hard decisions have to be made because the right decisions weren't made 4 years ago. So,
or anytime
I'm
since.
just right. I mean, I'm not trying to be harsh, but it just is what it is. But that's there you go. So there's that. So yeah, Jerome Hunter is going to open up another spot. We'll talk about that with more when we come back. Chris Denari is going to join us, catch up on what the Pacers are doing as well. But we'll talk more about Jerome Hunter when we come back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by More Honda here on Indiana Sports Beat. Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking for a new
Hey, that little blip right there about Jerome Hunter could be a big video booster right there for YouTube.
There you go.
Yep.
Also, when Chris Denari comes on, don't forget to mention the Oladipo surgery thing. I know you're going to talk about Jerome Hunter probably, but I would bring up the Oladipo thing at some point as well.
Hey, we've got to get that mask stuff up and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how are you, sir?
Hey, what's up, guys?
How are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, just getting ready to sit down and prep.
I feel like every week we talk to you, it's either the Pacers have won 3 of 4, or they lost 3 of 4.
Yeah.
And they've scored 130-something points, or they've given up 130-something points.
Yeah. No, yeah. And last week, I mean, I've got to write a tease for the telecast. And, I mean, last week, you know, when we met, they had that awful performance against Sacramento, all the stuff swirling out in the media. And then you win 3 of 4. Probably should have won 4 of 4. Should have beaten Washington on Saturday. It's interesting because, Dustin, I look back at that Washington game, and I think Bjorker made a mistake in that game from the standpoint he didn't have T.J. McConnell out there in the late game situation.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why. The only thing I could figure out was his size, you know, with Westbrook, but without Brogdon, and I love LeVert. LeVert's been great, but you need somebody else out there to manage the ball game, and now he's switched back and had McConnell in late game.
Yeah, and McConnell's played really. I swear, I know he's not known for his shooting, but it seems he's such a smart player that I feel like he's shooting 95% from the floor.
He's definitely looked for his shot more this year. You know, I mean, you know, that little penetrating drive, 10-footer fading. Yeah, and he definitely
coming back.
Tender steaks and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat commentators from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Joined now by the great Chris Denari, voice of the Pacers. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Weather's good. Cut a flower bed yesterday. My neighbor across the street goes, "I thought you had the day off." And
this is a day off.
We are hosting a wedding shower in a little over a week. I'm personally hoping I'm doing a playoff game at the time, but we are hosting a wedding shower for good friends of ours. Their daughter's getting married, so I've got a little bit of a honeydew list that I need to take care of.
Yeah, the Pacers are doing their best to make the playoffs. Like we've said, they one of the things they've been through all of that they've been through, but they have just not tanked. And so as the plight continues, but some have thought, man, is it better that they lose this play-in game for the benefit of the program? Not on purpose, but if that were to happen, it's going to be to their benefit.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is where you are. Even if you don't make the playoffs, I think unless the lottery balls fall right, you're going to be somewhere 10 to 14. And if you make the playoffs, you're probably going to be 15th or 16th in the draft. And to me, there's, some people will say that's a huge difference, but I'm not sure it is. I've always been one that, and this franchise has believed in it. You want to be in the postseason. They're not there yet. They are in the play-in, the new format that starts next week. They're currently tied for 8th. They don't have the tiebreaker with Charlotte. But Charlotte has 3 tough games left. Boston's only a game ahead. I mean, there's a chance you could get into the 7-8 game. And the reason you want to be in the 7-8 game is if you lose that first game, you still have a second chance to play the winner of 9 and 10 to get into the playoffs. Now, what is that going to get you? It's going to get you, if you're the number 8 seed, you're going to have to play Philadelphia, who you just played without Joel Embiid. But I'm just a believer that you want to be in the postseason. It only helps your franchise. And, I'm one of those, there are a lot of fans out there that don't want the team in the playoffs. They want the team to have a little higher draft pick. You're not going to have a top 5 draft pick unless something crazy happens. The odds of that happening just aren't with you. So I'm a believer that you try to keep building on what you have and move forward that way.
And Chris, the Pacers have won 3 of their last 4 games. And a week ago, we thought the sky was falling when Greg Foster was yelling at Gogo Batadze and there was a suspension and all that. They had lost 4 of 5 at the time, and they looked really bad. But to me,
isn't it funny how things change after situations like that so often?
Yeah.
And I was going to say, it's like something clicked. Like when you watch, it's not just the fact that they've won 3 of 4, and they should have, they're a Russell Westbrook free throw away and a heck of a play by him at that end of the game to get to that block on LeVert. But they could have won 4 straight. And to me, there's been a chemistry thing. Like it was something that clicked after that game. They've been playing extremely well. They've been playing together. And we talk about Sabonis and Karis LeVert. Those guys have been the anchors. But I look at the Cleveland game. Keelan Martin gets 25. Against the Hawks, TJ McConnell gets 19 points. In the 76ers game last night in the win, McDermott gets 20. So you're starting to see other players step up. It's not just 2 or 3 guys. You're having another guy step up in a big-time role. And to me, that speaks to the communication. And maybe they're starting to find that chemistry late in the season just at the right time.
Yeah, and they're doing this with all the injuries they have. They haven't had Brogdon for 7 or 8 games. Jeremy Lamb has missed 12 or 13 in a row. Miles Turner has been out for a month. And so you have to have at least a third scorer step up. I mean, when you had Sabonis, LeVert, and Brogdon, you pretty much had 3 20-point scores, and then you got some help in other places. But you're right. You had Keelan Martin play well in the Cleveland game from a point standpoint. McDermott had 20. You've got to have a third person or a fourth person that can chip in with points. But I'll also go back. I think they've made a tactical change defensively, and we saw that in the win against Philadelphia. They outscored the 76ers 15-2 down the stretch in the last 5 minutes. And I thought it was as much the defense as it was the offense. They opted to go big and have Sabonis and Goga Bitadze both out there. And I thought that created a wall for the Pacers. Nate Bjorkgren has wanted to pressure the ball a lot. And I'm not saying that's what you don't want to do, but I'm not sure at times you have the right personnel that you can do those things. So I think the way they have changed some things here, even in the last week, in how they've defended is a little better suited to the personnel that they have on the floor right now. And I thought that was a big reason they won the game against Philadelphia. We can look at the LeVert 3. We can look at all of those things. But if you don't get those defensive stops down the stretch, you don't win the game.
And one of the things as a fan, I'm looking at this team and you don't expect this team to be challenging in the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals this year. That's not what you're really looking at. But I'm looking ahead, and I know I've talked about this with you on this show before, but I look at this team and the way they have the ability to get really streaky. It seems to me like if this team, this roster they've developed so much depth with O'Shea Brissett, with Edmund Sumner, with even Goga's been playing well at times. They have the depth that I really believe that they're one player away from being a contender in the East. And that one player could be TJ Warren. So I would like to see this team mostly intact for the next season, because I think that this is a team capable, when it's healthy, of being one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the East and really making that challenge for an Eastern Conference Finals spot.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dustin. I'm not one of those guys that says you have to blow everything up and restart. I think that's very difficult to do. And if you look around the landscape of the East, surely you have the 3 top teams: Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. But after that, the Pacers beat Miami 2 out of 3. They did lose 2 out of 3 to Boston, but all those games were close, and now Boston doesn't have Jaylen Brown. No, I think you're right, and I think they will really analyze what they have to do. I mean, there are fans that, I've seen it both ways. I've seen fans that say, hey, bring everybody back again, let's run it back. I've seen fans say, hey, let's blow it up and restart. Oftentimes things happen in the middle. Do you make some changes on the edges? Do you, because of contract situations? I know for a fact that both TJ McConnell and Doug McDermott love playing for the Pacers, and I know both would like to be back. Both have had really good seasons. Where will their salaries fall? In trying to fit them in with what the Pacers have. Brogdon back next year, Warren, Turner, Sabonis, all of those guys are back unless you decide you're going to make changes. So, it's always so interesting. But I think you're right. They are a streaky team, and you've always said you want to be playing your best basketball at the right time. And let's see how they finish these last 3 games. Maybe they win 2 or 3, maybe they win all 3. And all of a sudden you go into the play-in situation, maybe in the 7-8 scenario, where all you have to do is win 1 game and you're in. We'll just have to wait and see. I just think the good news is they have a chance. And that's all you want as an athlete. And, a lot of people have said, well, gee, they make a lot of money, they should always compete. Well, sure, but these are human beings. This is not, PlayStation 4 or Xbox or whatever. and so they are competitors. You saw that the other night when TJ McConnell goes gliding across the floor for a loose ball. Domantas Sabonis on the ground getting the basketball. If there was any thought that these guys had given up on their coach or given up on each other, I think all that was erased the other night if you watched the Philadelphia game.
And that's what's been most amazing to me, that through it all, and when I say through it all, I mean losses, injuries, fights, coaching things. They have had everything thrown at them, but they have not quit. And that has impressed me beyond imagine, because in this day and age, it seems like people look for reasons to quit. Yeah. And especially at this time of year, when you've got nothing to really play for individually, and they have it. And I'm telling you, that's impressive to me. I'm thoroughly impressed with that.
Yeah, I think we always say, you tell your kids or you tell people, no matter what line of business you're in, you are measured by how you handle adversity, right? It's easy to be on top. It's easy to win. It's easy to deal with those things. But how do you handle things when things aren't so good? And I think over the last week, they had to deal with a lot of things, a lot of noise on the outside. Sounds like there was some noise on the inside, all those things going on. And so thus far, they've done a good job of handling that. I was just, as I look at the screen here, Tim Tebow, or as he wants to say, we just learned that Victor Oladipo is having season-ending surgery. I think we all thought that. And if you look back, what Kevin Pritchard was able to do, and again, I'm a big Vic fan. He did a lot of good things here for the Pacers. He had a great year in 2017-18, but for whatever reason, didn't want to commit, didn't necessarily, want to make his stamp in Indianapolis. For the Pacers to get Karis LeVert and what we've seen in the first 30 games from Karis LeVert and what we think we'll see in the next 2 years, that was a heck of a trade. That was Indiana getting involved in a blockbuster trade with James Harden going from Houston to Brooklyn. Why the Houston Rockets would not have wanted Karis LeVert, I have no idea. But if you're Indiana, you're very happy with how this scenario played out.
The Pacers always seem to end up on the winning side of those wheeling and dealings. And I know that's not always the case, but they've always made such great deals. Even you go back to the Victor Oladipo, Paul George situation where you get Sabonis in that situation. So, they've made some really good moves. But tonight they play a tough team in Milwaukee. And I got to be honest, over the weekend, looking at that Washington game, that Philadelphia game, I'm scratching my head going, boy, do I really want to watch these games tonight? Put myself through this pain because I've seen them, get blown out in some of those situations. This is another team, Milwaukee, that's kind of cleaned their clock a few times. But this is a Pacers team that you said they seem to be playing their best ball right now. So what challenges have you seen from Milwaukee? What challenges, other than having Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best players in the game, do they present to the Pacers, and how can they overcome that and maybe get 4 out of 5 now?
Well, yeah, you hit it right on the head. 2-time MVP Giannis is so hard to deal with. He's become a really good passer, and they center their offense around Giannis, and then they spread the floor. And they've got capable three-point shooters. I think 6 or 7 times this year they've made 20. They made 29 in a game. And they'll do it not just with their guards, but Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, a big player, will come off the bench and shoot the three. So that's always the worry that you have, is the way that they spread the floor. And the Pacers have struggled with that. And but they also, if you think back just to the other night, they were down 16 to Philadelphia and looked like they were going to be blown out of Bankers Life Fieldhouse in that first half. And again, they made some subtle adjustments down double figures at the half. And I think it all was on the defensive end. And I think that's what you'll have to watch for tonight. How do the Pacers defend Milwaukee? How do you get in their passing lanes? How do you make it a little bit tougher for Giannis to find the extra pass? Giannis is going to get his points. I mean, if Giannis plays, 30 plus minutes, he's going to be in the upper 20s. He's one of the top 5 scorers in the league. But how do you manage the other players, and how do you take them out of the game?
Well, one other quick question I have for you. Sorry, and this is going to maybe jump a little bit, but early in the season, one of the credits to Nate Bjorkgren was his adjustment, that second half. The Pacers typically had played poorly in the third quarter under Nate McMillan, at least that last season. And they were, they played really well at the first 10, 20 games at making adjustments. And they seem to have gotten away from that in the middle. And now he's doing well with that again. Do you think that's where the injuries come in, and kind of getting to know what personnel you're going to have, making those adjustments and getting to know your team a little bit? Or what seemed to be the cause there with that middle stretch?
But, it's interesting, Dustin, because a lot of us, we thought that early on those first 10, 20 games, other coaches and scouts really don't know what you're going to do, right? What changes are you going to make? Then all of a sudden, they've got enough tape. They've got 20 games of tape that they can sort of sit back and go, well, we've seen this story before. We think this is what they're going to do. So maybe one of the advantages here of late is the Pacers have had so many injuries, had to have so many different groups on the floor. I mean, the other night, we all noted in the fourth quarter, we saw a 5-player combination that had never been on the floor prior. So that tends to work to be an advantage for the Pacers, because none of these coaches or scouts have any tape on what that group is doing. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward, but they have been much better. What was impressive about Tuesday is Philadelphia, I think, is top 1 or 2 in clutch rating. And that means, how do you handle the game plus or minus 5 points inside the last 5 minutes? Philadelphia's been one of the best. And on Tuesday night, you outscored them 15-2. So you're going to see another team that's one of the best in the clutch tonight in Milwaukee. Let's see how the Pacers handle that as well.
Chris Denari is one of the best, and we're lucky to have you with us each week, man. We appreciate you so much. I hope you have fun with digging in the flower bed. If you get to do that some more, get your hands dirty.
That's right.
Just get out and dig in the ground and do something different.
That's right. It provides the energy for the final week of the regular season. I have to talk a lot. I might as well go out and use the shovel, right?
I look forward to the season getting over, and let's play some golf one day.
All right.
But, that day's getting closer and closer. Have a great rest of your week, Chris. Thank you so much, brother.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Chris Denari joining us from Indianapolis Pacers, keeping us up to date as the season winding down and they're heading towards the playoffs. We've got more coming up. We're going to talk more about Jerome Hunter and that transfer and what that means. And we'll get to your comments and questions on the YouTube comments as well. We're back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Whether you're looking for a relaxing night with a family.
Ready, okay. 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits a dollar.
Remember to mention the Miller Cop Tamar Bates show at the end. Again, I know you already mentioned it once, but you told me to.
Well, yeah. What do we have over here? Okay. Here's this cooler mask. Under banners, or I've got that, John.
Yes.
I entered that brand. There is these. And that.
Okay.
And so if you remind me to do live reads, I can.
That's fine. So are you saying when you do the live reads, do you want those graphics up on the screen?
For a live read, yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
For these two, only for these two.
For Andy Moore and Remax? Okay.
Yeah, because they're big sponsors.
Gotcha.
That's a good one right there, man.
More means more.
That's a great deal. Great. Hey, look at these masks they made. Can you see that?
Is that real?
Yeah, this mask company reads something. That's the sample gates.
That's impressive.
It's Memorial Stadium.
Wow.
That
one's gonna be a big seller.
It's not real, but it looks great. I've asked them to do.
What do you mean it's not real?
I mean, it's not the actual. This looks like a picture of Memorial Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not a picture. I don't think that's a picture of. That's not a picture of Assembly Hall. The rest of these are actual, real photos, man.
Right.
I don't have mine on here. But they did mine for me. They sent them to me.
Hey, go ahead and remove those. We're coming back here in a few seconds. And the link, unless you want the link.
Yeah. I'm looking for it. Actually, let's leave it up for a second. I'll talk about them.
Okay.
But fans, whether you're looking for a new or a used vehicle, Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty, Indy Home Pros.
Welcome back to the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Before I forget, Cooler Masks have reached out to me, and we've partnered with every day I say do something nice for everybody, wear your mask. But man, they have got some really, really, really cool ones. Here's one that I'm putting on. I mean, that thing, it looks exactly as good as it does here. But look at these I can throw up. You can see it on the screen. There's, if you're watching on YouTube, there's Memorial Stadium, the sample gates. It's nuts. There's a white one with red Indiana script and a black one with white Indiana script. But man, yeah, you can get them there at coolermask.com/Indiana-sports-beat, and you get a 15% discount. We're going to set this up so everything, if there's all profits will be going to the Chris Beatty Scholarship Fund. So how about that? So we got that going, working on that. So there's nice, and hit that link up for those. But and actually they've got the Indiana Sports Beat one up there, and It's up there on that page if you go to it, and the Hoosier.com if you want those as well. But it's there, and we're gonna get the visors up. There's some people visors too. We gotta get those out. But we'll get all that stuff up. Jerome Hunter, big story, not unexpected. Especially when we see yesterday that they're reaching out to someone yet that's an available player. Yeah, the writing's kind of on the wall. You've already brought a wing in, Miller Kopp, who we'll be talking to tonight, who is an experienced wing. So, yeah, you can see a shift at offense, more guard play, more up-tempo guard play. They've got an experienced wing in Miller Kopp, and if they can get the big guy to go along with the bigs they already have and what coming in, you got a ton of talent on this team, a ton of talent.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of talent. And as this continues, everyone asks, well, making their prediction for next year, the fans are, they're going to win the Big Ten championship. I'm like, hey, whoa. Slow your roll, bro. Slow your roll. But all of that keeps changing. And I'm like, well, no, they're a top 6 team. Well, that continues to change. Maybe they're a top 4 team right now. I don't know. That's also going to depend on how the Big Ten shakes out. Mm-hmm. What's Michigan going to be like? What's Iowa going to be like? What's Illinois going to be like? There are a lot of losses, including staff losses.
Right.
So,
well, you look right now, even at the way, I know this is way too early because you're still probably going to have some players under the portal and some changes, and who knows what's going to happen between now and the start of the next college basketball season. But Purdue, Ohio State, Maryland, those 3 teams, depending on what outlet or what media outlet you look at, those are all top 5, top 10 teams projected to be next season. So right there, those are 3 tough teams. As you mentioned, Illinois, Michigan State probably isn't going to be as bad as they were last season. Wisconsin is always tough, even though they lose a lot of players. I don't know that Iowa's going to be a contender, but Nebraska's. This is going to be a tough conference. I don't think it's going to be quite as deep as what it was this past season, but again, the talent at the top is going to be really, really good. So for Indiana to be in that conversation, to be in the top 6, even though that's not ultimately where you want to be in that top 3 every single year. Being in the top 6 under a first-year head coach who's never coached college basketball before, that's a huge accomplishment. And I know that they have a ton of talent. I think that this is going to be an Indiana team, talked about it multiple times, going to be really fun to watch, really entertaining. But at the same time, I think that this is probably going to be a team that can beat anybody on any given night, and probably can lose to a lot of different teams in the Big Ten too. That's more of a credit to the Big Ten than it is against Indiana. But I think that they could be a top 6 team, and I'm I don't want to hold my breath or get hopes up here, but I think that they're probably going to be a lock for the NCAA tournament.
Oh, I would agree to that wholeheartedly. Beyond a lock. I think that they're going to win some games in the tournament. But again, it's pointless to make predictions right now. Let's get to August. Let's see who they actually have on the roster. Let's see who everyone else has on the roster. But guess what? We're not going to wait till August.
No.
What the hell are you talking about? We're going to talk about it now. But we don't know right now.
No.
But it's fun to make those. I guess fun for the fans to do that, but we have to see what everyone else. But for Indiana, it's looking good.
Yeah,
really good. I mean, it was already looking better. They were instantly better than last season. They were automatically an NCAA tournament team for sure that I thought could win a game or 2. That continues to change in a upwardly trending way. How far up can that get? Who knows? But everything has changed in the game with transfers and all that. So,
well, and I made the comment multiple times during the basketball season. If you gave Indiana's roster to about 6 or 7 different coaches in the Big Ten, I'd like to see what they would do. And I thought that they would be a top 4 team. I think that they would have been a team that would have played a Friday game in the Big Ten tournament, getting that double bye. But we'll never know, and that's in the past. But that's why I think that that's why I'm making these projections. I'm not going to predict how many games they're going to win or anything, but that's why I do think that they're going to be a lock for the NCAA tournament, because you have new coaching staff, you have an experienced staff, you have one with ties to Indiana, and again, the talent. I know that people were upset about some of the recruiting. I thought the recruiting was fine. It was just the overall lack of development under Archie Miller and that staff. And I think that that's a big area that you're going to fix. And when you get a full offseason to get to develop these kids, I think you're going to see the rewards pretty quickly. And, you know, like I said, I don't expect that to be a top 3 finish in the Big Ten, but I do expect it to result in an NCAA tournament. And, you know, who knows? Once you get in there, you win a game or two. I can't make predictions on who's going to win games because that's such a crapshoot. And we saw it this year with Oral Roberts and North Texas and some of those teams knocking off the Big Ten, Loyola Chicago. But, you know, trending up, and that's all you can ask for right now.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. The recruiting, to say the recruiting was fine, I think it was okay, but that's all it was okay. And the recruiting was okay, which would have been fine had there been development.
Right.
There was no development, so with okay recruiting, it's not fine. So that was the problem. You can't have one without the other. And actually, you had both. You had marginal recruiting and you had zero development. So we all know that. That's not the case now. Now you've got a greatly increased talent load, and the development's going to go up. Man, it's been a great day. It flew by so fast. It's over already. Didn't even realize. But it cannot thank everyone enough, of course. Matt Taylor and Chris Denari, who join us each week. I'm trying to find this comment that I got up. Oh, it's to get it off there. It's over down here. There we go. Off the screen. But thank everybody enough. Look forward to tomorrow. Alec Lasley, Verdell Jones, of course, back on tonight. Don't forget at 7, Miller Kopp and Mr. Bates going to join us. We're going to talk about their move to Indiana basketball, what they're expecting, how this continues to change, and all of that. And I'm sure we'll talk about Jerome Hunter as well. But Dustin, I can't thank you enough as well, brother. Go out and have a great day.
Thank you. Always a lot of fun.
Appreciate you. Everybody else, thank you so much. Without you, we have nothing. Go out and do something nice for somebody. Please wear your mask. Go to coolermask.com, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Until tonight, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.